Good grief.
Welcome to Books We Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Jason.
I'm Nicole.
And today is our first week of reading Tom Lake by Ann Patchett.
Sorry, we look really crooked. It's fine.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. So, we're excited for you to be here with us. If you haven't read up through chapter 7 in the book, stop, back it up,
Through 7.
go read, and then come back and join us. We are on YouTube Music as a podcast, and we're on Instagram just for the memes and the entertainment and announcements of our books. And we super hope that you participate in the comments if you're here live, and you participate in the chat if you're here live, and the comments if you're watching the replay. We are super pumped about reliving these books, even if it's years later. Not that we can say years plural yet, but we're about to be able to say years plural.
We're very close to our second year. This is also, I think, episode 91. We're about to hit 100.
Yeah!
And there's a lot of things that we don't count towards our episodes. So we've definitely done over 100 videos at this point. But
how weird.
We don't count everything as an episode.
So yeah, that's where we are. That's what we're doing.
Hey, get out of
Tom Lake. We do have Atlas in the room, and she's not ready for nap time. She has a lot to say, and she's sniffing around and doing all kinds of stuff. So
yeah,
don't be concerned if you see a dog or hear a dog. So yeah, what y'all thinking about Tom Lake so far?
It's good. I've talked a lot here before about how I enjoy stories that are just about like people doing stuff, like no epic adventure, no no grand battles or anything, just like a story about people's lives. And that's kind of what this is.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing I feel like that we've read to this is Well Met. This is not like really a romance. It's sort of like a romance twice removed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it's most similar to for me.
Yeah, and I think you were saying yesterday it's like the narrative style.
The narrative, and somebody in the club might know. While I'm reading, I can't pay enough attention to like how things are written, but this feels like Well Met, like the way that it talks to you. It feels like Well Met.
The voice.
Yeah, the voice of it. You know, so like it doesn't read like Fourth Wing or Red Rising or something like that, where even though those are like epic, the way the voice is different.
Yeah. Let's see. Peggy uses an acronym in her comment that I don't know what it means. Himium? I don't. Or is that just a sound? Or I don't know. Onomatopoeia? Not sure. But it's kind of boring so far, she says. And she face palmed when she realized it was in the lockdown. Yeah, that made me kind of...
It was in the lockdown.
This book is taking place during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
The lockdown.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And I thought that was kind of interesting that we're already seeing novels and stuff about this point in time and the things that people did and went through. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Oh, How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, it does have that kind of vibe.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, okay, I have two comments on this. One of my highlights was actually the narrator's, Laura's, kind of comment about the COVID times. I wonder if YouTube's going to, like, flag us in a weird way for saying that word so much.
Who cares?
I don't know.
We don't make money. Like, whatever.
The pandemic.
There you go.
She said, I understand that joy is inappropriate these days. It's still, we feel what we feel. In those real early days when everything was just locked up tight. Uh-oh. Our light just like shorted out. Make sure nothing's smoking or anything. All right.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, you go check that out. Make sure we're safe. Things did feel weird, and we were real confused, and our emotions were kind of everywhere. So I thought that was a really, it was just a good note from her, a good comment from her, because she did feel joy having all her girls there with her for the first time in a while. And I think a lot of people felt that way. Like they didn't want to be locked down and they didn't want to stay home, but they did find ways to find joy just in slowing things down,
Yeah.
taking a step back, being together with family again. I know it drove some people through the roof and ruined some lives. And not to mention, you know, especially at the very beginning, a massive amount of loss, you know, that we had. And so it did feel inappropriate to feel joy from being able to slow down or being able to have your kids back home or whatever. So I got that. And then, shoot, I had another comment about the, like, How I Met Your Mother part. It'll come back to me. Shelby says she has a lot of family in rural Michigan, so this book is nostalgic for her to a certain extent. Yeah, I like this. You know, reading is escapism, right? And so it's unfortunate that it takes place during the lockdown because that ain't escapism for nobody. But a lot of people have this feeling of like, in another life, I own land and I work the land and I work hard all day and I sleep hard at night and I get up the next morning and I work the land, you know, and for some reason that is somewhat within me, which makes no sense.
Last night while she was reading, she said, maybe we should get a farm.
I always have had this little feeling just in the back of my mind of like, I want some cows and I want some goats and I want to wake up with the chickens and I want to do my farm chores and just live off the land and sell enough to make enough money to live off of and pay my bills. That is unreasonable. I am not strong enough or smart enough to do any of those things.
Well, sure you are, but it's
And
you
a lot of work. Never leave it. You can never take a break from it. You cannot go on a trip because who's going to feed those cows when you're not there? And on this farm, they have workers, but they don't have workers now because all the workers are having to stay home. So I live an hour or two north.
Let's do this. Let's start from now on. If we're doing laundry, we're gonna call it feeding the chickens. If we're like washing dishes, we're gonna call it picking cherries. That'll give you like that's the vibe, right?
When I wake up extra early or like before work, if I'm watering the yard, I just call it my farm chores. I already do that in my head.
I mean, like, there's definitely nothing wrong with it. I think, you know, it's a lot of work. It doesn't pay that well for most. You know, I mean, there's a lot of.
There's no profit.
Yeah.
There's break even if you're lucky, and I do think part of this urge within me comes from my childhood when I did get to spend summer weeks with like my great grandmother, and they had farmland and cows and goats, and I didn't do all of that. I wasn't old enough to participate fully and understand how horrible it was, and I would need to learn how to work on tractors and but I would love that, like working with my hands and just
there's something very American about it, right? Like this is like you're self-sufficient. It's the pioneer spirit that's in all of us and like there's definitely nothing wrong with wanting to go and do that. But I work in air conditioning and I enjoy that. So.
Yeah. I do grow things, Peggy, at the house. I do have a little.
Yeah. If our garden is successful this year, we'll talk about a small farm.
I do have a successful garden. I'm growing basil like nobody's business. Cannot be contained. And so, therefore, because of my basil success, I have the healthiest crop of grasshoppers anyone's ever seen. They are this big. I'm not exaggerating at all. They are huge. They make eye contact. That's how big they are. So anyways, this book really brings that farm energy to my life. Cherries, though. It's interesting.
This, I don't know anything about the play that they keep talking about at all.
Our Town?
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. It's great. It's probably like Fiddler on the Roof or something.
Yeah, I've only ever heard of it.
Yeah. But, you know, I was an actor in high school, and so this brings back some, like, actor vibes to me, but I was not good or talented or anything approaching that, so.
Yeah. I got really irritated with high school Laura when she was feeling all this embarrassment for the people showing up to audition for the play. Like, you are 15, okay? Shh. But like, she wouldn't make eye contact with her friend's dad because he came to audition for the play. He's living his life.
Kind of
Shut
blows
up.
my mind that like adults have time for this.
Shut up, kid.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, how bold is this child to feel embarrassment on behalf of adults? Get out of here. You have enough to be embarrassed about. You're 15. You probably smell funny. If you're 15, you're fine.
There was that weird scene where like she started hooking up with the teacher. That whole like aside was strange, and like it never comes back around.
Yeah,
and
which is good.
I don't know why it was in there, and like that's fine. And I guess it's kind of it comes up again with like the friend of her uncle, where like I don't know, it's just sort of like this weird commentary on like there's some strange sexual stuff that happens in the acting world or whatever, and like I get it, I'm on board. Why we had to have a felony occur, I don't know. I don't know. But
Yeah. Well, and I think, so we are learning this is a story about an actress, and her daughter, her youngest daughter, is also trying to be an actress. And we got this towards the end of our reading this week, this fear her mom has for her daughter, and trying to let her know, like, you will never have to do this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to put yourself in these situations. But the point is, I think if you listen to any of the deep, dark stories and memoirs of any of our actors and actresses, especially if they started as children, I think they all have a story of sexual assault or someone taking advantage. I don't know how you want to word it. It's sexual assault no matter what. But I think they all have this trauma.
Yeah. I don't know. Laura was a minor, so you can say, well, she chose this, whatever.
You can't choose when you're a minor. And some people would say, like, this difference doesn't make much a difference later.
Sure.
A lot of young kids do date people older than them. That's fine. Well, he became a teacher, and at that point, it was not appropriate. I mean,
it wasn't appropriate because of the age. It wasn't appropriate because of the teacher. Anyway, but my point being is, the saddest part about like that weird aside is not anything necessarily that happened to Laura, but her daughter saying like, "Oh, in school we talk about this and go through like scenarios of like how to deal with it." I'm like, okay. Like, I'm glad y'all are practicing for this so that you cannot be taken advantage of, but how about we like pick out the people that would be doing this sort of thing, and we do some role play with them where like you want to make a deal with somebody and then you don't, right? Like,
right.
How about we do that?
Why are we having to prep the victims?
That's so crazy. Yeah.
Why can't we get rid of the weirdos? But I mean, just every entertainment industry has these just terrible people. I'm thinking about the guy that like produced for the Beatles for a while. He like entrapped one of the Hey There Mr. Postman singers. I don't know, I can't remember his name, but it was just super terrible.
Playing off of Peggy's comment, the worst thing about it, I'm not willing to believe that, like, because like he was young, he was what, 22 or something. Like, okay, fine, he's 22, she's 15 or 16. That's wild. And I went to school in a small town. Pickings were slim. You did too. I get that. Still illegal.
Yeah.
I get the concept.
Yeah. Well, and
still
he
illegal.
Knew it was inappropriate.
And he went 2 towns over. That man wasn't just like, oops, I've been like dating somebody and now they're young and I'm old and like it's not cool anymore.
He was grooming.
Yeah. This is here we are and she's at Tom Lake and that dude is back in New Hampshire somewhere talking to kids in other towns. That's how this goes.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Peggy says he's going to keep getting older and teaching kids the same age. He needs to be in jail. Yes.
Anyway, not the point of the story, but that triggered me.
No.
So.
And I think the point of that aside in this story was to show the wedge that the distance that grew between her and her friend.
Sure.
That was kind of the ending of their friendship.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, the path to the movie was crazy, and I thought that was really interesting. It's not like Laura had this big, grand plan to become an actress and be in the films, Yeah, Moira. But here it is, and it
Yeah.
happened, and none of this happened because she was proactive about anything. She was just floating along the river.
Yeah.
An opportunity came up.
Well, and I think that's kind of like the point of this story is, like all of her daughters are kind of obsessed with Duke, and like, why didn't you end up with Duke? And at one point, Laura says, like, I feel like I dodged. She tells Nell or somebody, right? Like, I feel like I dodged a train, and
She
you need to
tells
know
the
that.
dog.
Oh, really? And so, but because this story isn't about a grand plan. The story is not about how she
Mm-hmm.
meant to end up on a farm in Michigan, slaving away every day during a pandemic. The story is about luck and how she would not like she did not mean to be here, but she would not want to be anywhere else. And
Yeah.
like I think about that,
Yeah.
I think I have very specific moments that led me to being right here right
Mm-hmm.
now. And like uh, so like I come from much further south than we live currently, and like there is a specific basketball game that if I had never gone to that basketball game, I never would have moved 2 hours further north. If I hadn't gone 2 hours further north, I never would have ended this much further
Mm-hmm.
north, which means I never would have met you. I'd never be doing this. And like, there's like other like weird little like the way that we met,
Yeah.
we we had like no right to
Yeah.
meet. Like it never should have happened. But like that's luck.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the chance thing, and I didn't want to stay here, but here
Mm-hmm.
we be.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not trade this for anything. And so, but and that's the point, right? And so I guess that's kind of the important narrative of how she got to the movie was that like she just kind of kept going with the flow
Mm-hmm.
and appreciated it as it went, I guess. Whereas her daughter is like trying to engineer this thing. It's like a grass is greener situation.
Yeah.
Laura is just kind of being happy and cool with what's happening, and her daughter like wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And like, well, what if that's not what you want? And like, you can't tell somebody that. They got to figure it out themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I explained to the dog how I've told myself for so many years that my career fell apart because I wasn't any good. But now I'm starting to think it all fell apart because I had ceased to be brave. If this were a movie, I'd be drowning in regret now. But I'm telling you, Hazel, it doesn't feel anything like regret. It feels like I just missed getting hit by a train.
Yeah.
Telling the dog.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. In the chat. The daughter that thought her dad was not her dad threw me too. Where'd she get that from? She was just having a high school crisis. That's all. She was a very emotional high schooler. She was the first of the daughters. She has all the estrogen. She was just having a crisis, like an identity crisis,
Yeah.
right? Like she was where she was, and she wanted to be something special, and she wanted to be something different.
Yeah. I think there was probably like everybody after Harry Potter wanted to like have their letter show up and they could go be a wizard or whatever. I think before that, like I think it's natural for all kids to imagine like where could I have like what could my other life be?
Yeah.
And I think before Harry Potter it was like, well, what if I had like an adopted family?
Yeah.
I think I went through like a hey, what if I were adopted situation for a while because of the Boxcar Children.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever read those?
Mm-hmm.
Like the little mysteries, 20 pages or whatever, and like they were adopted and they had like this rich family and they solved mysteries or whatever. And like for a while I wanted my name to be Henry. Like I was like a child, right? Like I was very small. If you were to see me standing next to my mom, you would know that I am not adopted.
Adopted.
But like I don't know. I think that's like she was like weird and aggressive about it, but
Yeah, she was very, very, and I like this description that they're still a little afraid of her sometimes.
mm-hmm.
That's going to come back out. And that reminds me, I mean, I had some wild swings as a teenager, and I am lucky my parents didn't put me out on the street and beg someone else to pick me up.
Yeah.
Um,
Good girl,
she was
Alex.
asleep. I remember how like powerful those hormone tantrums were. They were insane, and that's what she experienced.
I mean, she sounds unhinged, right? Like it's, and like I don't know.
Look, the ancient Greeks, like back in Antigone days, used to send their teenage girls away
I can't
and
deal.
let them come back once they were in their 20s.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Crazy. I mean, someone's got to deal with them, but boy, howdy. So, anyways.
Well, so what's interesting about Emily is she's the one that was having this moment as a child, but she's also the one who is like set on, I'm gonna live here. This is my right. Like she has come truly full circle about the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing, and like wants the life that she has.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think it's interesting.
It is interesting. It is. And then you have the one who's a vet.
Yep.
And then the one who's going to be the actress. See, I've got more notes. I also really like about how the story is unfolding that we do typically, I think most people know how their parents met. You know, how did they end up getting together? How did they stay together? You know, we ask our parents those stories, but it isn't often that we get much story about before they met. And part of that just might be from my own experience, and that's because my parents were very young, you know, when they got married. So maybe there wasn't much before each other, you know. But I do think it's interesting that these girls are learning, like, well, wait a minute, there was someone very significant before Dad.
Yeah.
And what was that like? And how did that end? And why did that end? And they have all these questions because you kind of assume you're going to follow a similar path as your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, their stories kind of guide your life,
Right.
you know? So I think that the girls are really learning a lot. And some of it's just curiosity, but then some of it's also like, what effect does this have on me? And what does this mean about my parents' relationship with each other? And how's Dad okay with living up to Duke?
Mm-hmm.
Duke, you know, like, and Dad doesn't seem perturbed by it at all. He's like, yeah, he's a great guy. His brother Sebastian, great tennis player.
Yeah.
Cool people.
I really like the dad. He's my favorite character so far. He's chill and just like doing his thing.
Like, I gotta go feed the goats.
Yeah, just like whatever, y'all. And like, and he's not like threatened by, because a lesser man would be threatened by the retelling of this story.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it just doesn't matter.
Would be very sensitive about hearing about this story. And even though she's not telling about, you know, the spicy parts,
Mm-hmm.
Dad knows that there were spicy parts there,
Yeah.
and he ain't worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really funny when they were all sitting at the dinner table together. I highlighted it, and one of the girls finally looked at the dad and said, "Well, what do you know about him?" And all the other girls were in shock because they didn't realize.
they said what they didn't realize they could call him to the stand.
Yeah. There's just part of this narrative. Sorry, that was probably loud, the mic. Some of the narrative is just very funny. These very casual, conversational type notes. Didn't realize they could call them to the stand. Like, that's I think that's that kind of narrative that helps this flow and be entertaining and interesting. Once she got to Tom Lake, it took Peggy 0 time to lose respect for the woman. She literally smokes because a hot guy asks her to. And then it kind of leads us to think, that she hooked up with him after the walk. And I think this is just the story of a young girl who doesn't know where she wants to go or what she wants to be. And she's just living her life. Just letting other people kind of determine where she's going to end up and where she's going to be, and just enjoying herself along the way without stressing out over it. Yeah. So, I mean, she's not strong on principle, and that could be a problem.
Yeah. It is what it is. But I think again, right. So it's sort of this idea that like she might, have enjoyed it. She definitely in the current time seems to be thinking that like she doesn't like regret her time necessarily. But she is now choosing. She is choosing her current husband and her current life. I'm not sure how many other options she would have at this point in time, but like she's choosing it. And somebody mentioned earlier that how many people wish that how many like adults wish their lives were different or whatever. But like you could just and like you may not have chosen the life you have, but you can choose it. Like you didn't mean to be here, but you can be like, you know what, I'm gonna do this one. The best I can. And those are the people who are happy. So.
Yeah. Well, and it takes balance, I think, to be content in life. Yeah. You need to have goals. You need to also have the flexibility to adjust and adapt to changing situations, understanding what's out of your control, and controlling what's within your control. You have to be able to do both of those things, and it's far too easy to pine over what was lost or missed opportunities or mistakes that were made or things out of your control. That's the easier thing to do,
Yeah.
is to be upset about those things. So I think, and we've talked about that before in
Yeah.
the show.
Sort of like the all possible worlds.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm going here, right? Like,
getting a little Spinoza.
yeah, wishing that
Or
like I
Leibniz.
could have done this, but like you can't now. So
Because it's over. Yeah, it's past.
Yeah, you live in the only possible world,
Right.
so deal with it. Like, I guess
Right.
just like choose to be happy. And I know that's easier said than done. I don't think it's that hard. I'm generally just pretty cool with what's happening, but
But I think we might be kind of built that way.
Yeah, yeah.
It might just be part of
that's
our
a personality situation.
chemical makeup. Yeah. I really like. Sorry, I'm just kind of jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
I have lots of highlights. I like this reflection that Laura had as she was doing the table read for Emily at Tom Lake, realizing that she's the age that Emily was at the end of the book, and realizing that her opportunities to play Emily were very quickly running out.
Yeah.
I think that for actresses, that is a really big problem. They age out very quickly, and all of a sudden, once you're past your 20s, you're playing mothers, like
Yeah.
old mothers in
Yeah.
shows, and that's the only role you can get, and that's a very bad problem. It's sometimes it's hard to feel bad for actors and actresses. You're like, okay, well,
Yeah. You got $40,000 to like hang
you know,
out or whatever.
but this is that's their world and their
Yeah.
passion, and that sucks that there's such strict views on women acting and stuff like that. But I feel like there's also something metaphorical here in this commentary about, this is her last chance to play this role. There is some commentary here on life that I've been like picking away at, and it's just kind of mulling around in my head, and I'll have more to say about it maybe next week. But I feel like that's kind of a theme running through the book so far. I just haven't been able to put all the pieces together.
Yeah. I want to give Shelby a gold star because she mentions Midnight Library and how like sort of like, kind of like this world that the girls are building up. Like, what this could have been different. We could have done this story sort of that way, and we could have Laura exploring all these different possible avenues that her life could have gone.
Yeah, super
That's a good
gold
point,
star. And one of the daughters makes a comment that like this story isn't really about Duke, or this really isn't the story that we thought it would be, and I see what's going on here, just one thing leads to the other. The story's never what we think it's going to be about. It's just our life, and it's pretty boring, or it's pretty one thing leads to the other, and you're just living one day at a time and doing your best. And to somebody else, they're digging for this great story to come out of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I did this thing one time. It's kind of hard to live up to other people's expectations for the stories of your life. Unless you're an actor and actress, in which case you are a storyteller and you know how to kind of exaggerate these things. But Joe seems great, very secure, still into his wife. Yeah. What genre is this?
I don't know. Fiction.
Yeah.
Pandemic romance.
Fiction-y fiction. But this is a little subset genre of like family. It's almost like a memoir, but it's fiction. I need to figure out like what this is called. We'll come back at literary fiction.
Yes.
Shelby says the older you get, the more fun stories your parents fill in too. My parents send cassette tapes and letters back and forth for 2 years. That's cool. Yeah, your parents can fill in some better details as you get older, They have to keep things pretty tame when you're young. But yeah. Okay, so anyways. Oh, I also highlighted the little part about so they turn their phones off at the dinner table. But, the vet girl has to keep her phone on because what if she needs to go have a vet? And then the oldest one, Emily, has to keep her phone on so that her boyfriend can let her know when he's going to be home. So they let the youngest girl keep hers on because it's not fair. She has to turn hers off. But they turn theirs off because everyone they want to talk to is already there.
Yeah, that's nice.
So godparents are the best. Yeah, mom trom pandemic. Yeah, we're making our own.
I did think
genres
a little
over
bit
here.
about Wrong Place, Wrong Time while reading this because if anything, this is right place, right time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's sort of like the inverse of some of those stories that we've mentioned
Mhm.
already, and like I think this is kind of my speed, right? Like I like reading. It's like this is like real life Hobbit fiction where like this is Bilbo talking about his adventure while like hanging out
Mhm.
at his house chilling and being like, I mean, like, I did this thing, but I would really rather be here.
Yeah.
And that's my speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we might be in for the girls kind of picking up some trauma, that their mom might not be who they thought she is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a risk you run when you ask questions and you want to learn about your parents. You learn that they haven't always been your parents. They had a whole other life
Yeah.
before you popped up. So, I've got more highlights. I'm enjoying just the little nuggets that are coming out of this.
I was thinking about this. Like, we made a comment maybe in the last book or the book before that, like, I tend to think that, like, the world has always been the way it is now. You know what I mean? Like the countries are basically the same. The systems are basically the same. And the same is true about our parents. But that's because my parents are still together. Your parents are still together. I wonder, and I think the same thing is kind of happening to these girls, right? Their parents are sort of monolithic, and the idea that there was something different kind of blows their minds. And I wonder if that is that because of the way that we grew up with like our parents being in a stable relationship. If somebody lived with their mother and they had like 7 boyfriends, would they think it was that weird that their mother had a life before their current dad? You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
like I wonder how like a life experience would affect sort of that perception here. If this story, if Joe had been the fourth man that Laura had been married to, and the girls had been through all of that, they wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
think it was that weird to hear about another dude before
Mm-hmm.
the first guy. Yeah, I don't know. Um, and so I'm just kind of pointing that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard for us to see things as different as they've been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you've lived in a life where things are different,
Mm-hmm.
often,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's not really that hard to imagine. Yeah. And it may not even be that traumatic. It might just be normal. You know what I mean? Like, and so
Right. I like the little scenario the mom Laura tried to make for her girls about the fair.
hmm
And like, you loved that so much when you were younger, but don't you prefer what you're doing now?
hmm
And they're like, no, I like both. I just lost on them.
Yeah.
She really crafted this whole story and this whole scenario to try to help them understand how she feels, and it just over their heads. Oh, I died. You can't explain that to no kids. Oof. I mean, they're grown women. They're not really kids. But anyways, I thought it was funny. Will say because of this book, instead of buying grapes at the grocery store this week, I bought cherries. We're gonna put
Alright.
cherries in the fridge. You got any highlights?
Yeah. There's one point where Laura says that she looked every um, she makes a comment about I think it's one of the people who was trying out for the play when she was in high school. She said they looked every hard day of 35, and I resemble that remark.
I also made the note, and I think I made it at the fair commentary thing, that, Laura was older at 18 than her daughters were at
Sure.
18. Like, their generation was more mature in a lot of ways, more independent in a lot of ways. Like, they were just older at younger ages. And I feel like her daughter's generation, even like we're older than her daughters were at this point, but our generation, we're a little younger than our parents were
Sure.
at our age.
Sure.
Anyway.
And then the other, I only made 2 notes. The other note I made is when she's talking to Nell. I think it's whenever the girls leave with their dad, and Laura and Nell are still like out picking cherries, but Laura's kind of like asking her like, "Hey, I'm sorry, is this story bumming you out?" And Nell
Mm.
says, "It's the circumstances of my life that are making me miserable, not the story." And that breaks my heart because that's not true. Right? It's not the circumstances of your life that make you miserable. It's the way you think about the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances of your life that make you miserable. And you could like this is self-inflicted,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sad because it's common, and it's sad because it's like normal and accepted, and it's unnecessary, and
Nell needs to learn about stoicism.
yeah, yeah, and I like again, like maybe I'm just built this way where like I just
Yeah.
pretty chill all the
Well,
time,
but
but like
you practiced that
that's
to
true.
get to that point.
Yeah.
You were a little wild child.
Hammer.
No pre-sharpened pencils. We were all older. We had to use real maps and pencils to fix tapes that we created on Sundays. Uh, oh yeah. I'll have to see where the cherries came from. Good job.
I've never been to Michigan, but I know a lot of people from this area, and so I think it's kind of cool.
I have been to Michigan.
Oh yeah.
I've been to Dearborn.
Oh
I went with Era.
oh, cool.
Hi Era. If you're watching.
Oh man, that brought me to. Oh, so the other part that I enjoyed so far, like Duke is fine, whatever. I do think the part where he like got that girl to smoke and then like was just like we're going back to your room now, right? Was like kind of weird. Um, it wasn't like as aggressive as that, but it was still I don't know, still seemed weird. But
Mm.
the part where he shows up and tells this long lie, I loved it
About Tom Lake.
about Tom Lake, where he just tells this long story. He's like, I don't know, man, I made that up because sometimes I do that, where I just
Yes.
tell these long stories that I'm just making up because I think it's funny, and so I enjoyed that part.
They go on and on. On and on. I thought it was really funny. That whole interchange where he's introducing himself
Mhm.
and all that. But she goes to sit on the windowsill and he freaks out. I was really laughing at that part.
One part I did enjoy about that interaction is when he realizes that she was like scoping out like how do I get out of here if I need to, and like number one, I hate that that happens to anybody. I think more men should be aware of like, hey, like
Don't
corner,
block the doorway.
don't corner people. That's strange. But whenever he recognizes it, he immediately goes into like, hey, I'm not a threat. I'm trying to be. I'll make you comfortable, and makes like a joke about it and backs up
Hmm.
and tries to help her be comfortable. And I do appreciate that part, I suppose.
Yeah. No, he did good there.
Yeah. So Shelby, the whole story about Tom Lake was a lie. He made it up, and he said at the end of it, he's like, I don't know why it's called Tom Lake. He just said it. So
It's so stupid.
yeah.
Whenever they all say goodnight to each other, the daughters and the mom, they always like sing it. And I hear it like the sound of music when my
Mhm.
little kids are singing the good night. Anyway, just wanted to share that. Had a note. See, I
Yep.
read like sound music. And that's the end of my notes.
Yeah. So far, it is good for what it is, right? Like if you were looking for like a wild journey and a, you know, saving the world and all that, you're not getting that. But it's just the story, and
And
and like it's a story that could happen to anybody,
yes,
and I think that's kind of what's
and you're just
it's your story.
capturing
Yeah.
a moment in time with this family during the pandemic. Um, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
Just catching a glimpse. Yeah, Peggy, I think we all think most women are always watching the exits. Um, and when they're blocked, we start looking for ways we can claw our way out if we need to. Yeah, it's a beach read. That's what I said. That's what I said, Shelby.
I did enjoy the little dog. If you look at the thumbnail for this video, there's a tiny dog sticking his head up.
Yeah, Hazel's great, right? Little rescue dog that knows she's a rescue.
Yeah.
She can't climb the stairs, but she jumped up in the back of the truck into
Yeah.
the girl's arms. And the comment that Laura made was like, well, look at that. Easy reading if you don't mind the... Yeah. Yeah, none of us want to relive the pandemic, but it happened. And just like we see more technology in books now, we see cell phone use in books now, we're going to see references to that because it was a thing that happened. And it was relatively a short-lived situation.
Yeah.
Like, as far as the lockdown part or whatever, but it was very profound and it changed the way we feel about things and the way we do things. And
it's kind of interesting that, as far as I'm aware, we don't have like a romance movie yet set in that like time. Like I feel like that would happen.
Be
like
my
we've got a
pandemic
book
boyfriend.
now. Yeah.
My Skype boyfriend.
Something. We don't need the pandemic for that, right? My AIM boyfriend. AIM. You don't remember like AOL Instant Messenger?
I used ICQ.
What is that?
It was like I seek you. ICQ. Yeah, I don't know.
Sketch.
It was just a messenger app that me and my friends all used. Luckily, no weirdos ever reached out.
Yeah, I Am Legend is similar.
Very lucky.
Except everybody died.
I've never seen I Am Legend.
It's alright.
But if everyone does, I don't want to watch it.
Well, it's like set post-apocalyptic. It's like a post-apocalyptic situation.
I did try to Google Tom Lake and find it in Michigan. No luck.
Yeah.
Aw. Oh, well, they did mention that it's not really called Tom Lake.
Right.
That's just what the people
call it
there.
But nobody knows why. And we don't know the real name. They never like...
Yeah.
He never like got to that point of telling us what the official name on the map is.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. So yeah, I mean, so far
as expected.
It goes quickly, you know. Like it's not like I'm really having to like dig deep to get this book finished.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
We'll see. The middle section can be a...
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
drag. We'll have a 20-minute episode next
I
Sunday.
definitely have a feeling that this middle section is going to be more similar to Well Met. Like I think it's going to be a lot of like, here we are acting at this place.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Becky, that movie is sad.
We'll watch it.
All right. Well.
Yeah, I think I've said about all I've got to say.
I've picked apart everything that I can pick apart, and we're going to read chapters 8 through 14 and see you next Sunday.
And next Sunday we'll also... I hope...
I thought Well Met was cute.
It was fine.
I mean, there were some icky parts, and it was overall cute.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot.
We did.
You talked about a lot of things you've never talked about before.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Just like dealing with like romance from this point of view.
I talk about that all day.
Well, no.
Just don't talk about it here.
But from the other point of view,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, like,
I'm
I'm not
talk about romance all day.
No, you're right. I talk about. Yes, it's not romance. You're right.
Romance means sex. You do talk about that every day.
Yeah, it's complicated. Anyway, but yeah, like I wouldn't be opposed to that, and like there was, Well Met was fun. I mean, it was the most similar thing to this, and I just, like I expect to see her in like the cafeteria or whatever, like meeting people and poking around and doing shenanigans, and like I don't this story is not direct, and so it's not gonna be like, here's our relationship. We're gonna get a lot of like bonus material, you know what I mean, as she's talking about what this meant for her and all that. And at some point we'll probably meet Joe, you know what I mean, like we'll probably see Joe show up for a tennis match or something. And
yeah, who was Joe in all of this? Like, was he also an actor, or was he just a tennis guy? Or how they all know each other.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. And we're gonna pick our next book next week.
Already, it comes so fast.
We'll let Atlas pick again,
Yeah,
or the hat. We'll figure it out.
She is honk shoeing. But yes, Peggy mentioned at the beginning, Atlas picked this book out, so she gets a say. Mm-hmm. She said it all before we hit go on the camera.
She knew it had a rescue dog in it.
Aww, baby.
All right, we'll wrap this up. Thank you all for being here today. We will see you guys next week, same time, same place.
Happy reading.
Bye.